This is Mac OS Ken.
Maybe new Macs, definitely new operating systems, and I'm trying to remember, are we expecting anything else new at WWDC? It is Monday, the 5th of June, 2023. I'm Ken Ray, and this is a special edition of Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Go to hellofresh.com/MOK16 and use code MOK16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. Coming up in just a moment, we're going to be talking with Jeff Butts, managing editor of the Mac Observer, about expectations around today's WWDC23 Keynote. Will there be new Macs? Will there be AI talk? When can we start mixing our realities? We're chatting with Jeff in just a bit, but first a word from Issue, the all-in-one platform to create and distribute beautiful digital content and sponsor of today's show. If you're already producing newsletters, magazines, catalogs, and such, but feel like you could use a little zhuzh, Issue can help. Issue lets you turn your flat PDFs into interactive digital publications and social posts for everyone and across a number of platforms. Embed the content on your site, convert it into easy-to-read articles for mobile, send it out to your mailing list, reach your audience on Instagram. With Issue, you can create once and share everywhere. Issue helps you hit the platforms you know with the tools you're already using, folding seamlessly with Dropbox, InDesign, MailChimp, and more. Get started with Issue today for free, or sign up for an annual premium account and get 50% off when you go to issue.com/podcast and use promo code MacOSKen. That's ISSUU.com/podcast and use promo code MacOSKen at checkout for your free starter account or 50% off an annual premium account. That's issue.com/podcast with promo code MacOSKen. It has been a while since WWDC brought this much anticipation to anybody but developers. People are expecting a technological ground shift today. To discuss some of what we might see, I turn to Jeff Butts, managing editor of the Mac Observer. So what's funny is there's nothing I want to talk about except the headset, except right now.
What? You don't want to talk about the headset?
I do.
The one that's going to cost $12,000, look like something out of War of the Worlds, and you got to have a 12-volt car battery to power it?
Yeah, that you wear on your hip. No, I do want to talk about it, but I want to talk about it later because it's almost the only thing happening today as far as I'm concerned. And I know that that's not true. In fact, I know there's rumors of new hardware. Of course, there are going to be new operating systems introduced as well.
Yep.
What are you hearing on the hardware side?
Well, so, yeah, we do. Lately, we've been getting new hardware just about every year at WWDC. Mm-hmm. We've been hearing for a while now about a 15-inch MacBook Pro. And just recently, we started hearing some rumblings about new Mac models that don't match up with a MacBook Air and also don't match up with a possible Mac Pro. So there are two new Mac computer models that we do think Apple will introduce. First is the 15-inch MacBook Air. Mm-hmm. And as you know, right now, the Air is only available in 13.6 inches, but we've been hearing for a while that a bigger one's on the way. And it sounds like it's going to use the same M2 processor and perform similarly to the current batch of M2 MacBook Pros. What's kind of interesting is what we hear Apple is doing with display. It's apparently using the same screen resolution for that 15-inch display that it uses on the 14-inch MacBook Pro. So the same number of pixels, but stretched out to 15 inches. So people say it'll be a little bit less sharp, but I can't really see too many people noticing any difference.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be like the high-end either, video or illustration. I mean, the artists might care about that, but they're probably not going for a MacBook Air anyway. They're probably going for some sort of Pro.
Exactly. And then now the other thing that it looks like is coming is a second generation of the Mac Studio. Apple's got 2 new models that it's been testing. Identifiers Mac 14,13 and Mac 14,14. And none of those match up to what leaks say are assigned to the upcoming Mac Pro. So these could be new M2-powered Mac Studio desktops. And so we would expect one of them to run the M2 Max, and the other would run the as yet unannounced M2 Ultra. And that M2 Ultra, expect that to have twice the number of bits and pieces as the M2 Max. So a 24-core CPU, 60-core GPU, and up to 192 gigabytes of RAM. And then a beefier M2 Ultra is rumored to have a 76-core GPU. And I don't think I even use half of the cores in my M1 Mac Studio. So that would be a beast.
Let me ask you a question, and this is just like an outside, like random thought. I'm not basing this on anything except for some craziness. And we'll get to software in a moment. Bloomberg's Mark Gurman said last week, I believe, either last week or the week before, that he's expecting the keynote to go over 2 hours. And he's expecting the keynote to go over 2 hours because there are the new operating systems, there are the new Macs, and then, of course, there's the headset, which we're not talking about for another few minutes, and, of course, the operating system that runs that as well.
Right.
Any chance we wake up Monday morning, and, of course, by the time people hear this, people will have heard this, to press releases saying, here are the new Macs that are coming out? Because I can't see a 2-hour plus keynote. There's a ton of stuff that's supposed to happen.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like that would be a long time to expect people to sit quietly in their seats and wait for Apple to go through everything.
No, especially in that hot Northern California sun. Although I hear they built an awning this year, which is excellent.
Yeah, they built a couple structures, I heard.
Yeah, I heard about that too. But
one for the thing that we're not talking about yet.
Yeah, that's why I say we'll get to it. All right, talk to me really quickly. Well, first of all, I think there's almost no chance that we wake up to those press releases, although it would be quite a statement going into WWDC if Apple said, right, we're going to go ahead and get the brand new Macs out of the way before we even start talking, because we got a lot of stuff to talk about, and this ain't it.
Well, I mean, look at the non-event that we got for the latest round of MacBook Pros.
Well, but I mean, there was no event.
That's what I mean.
Well, but I mean, there's going to be an event.
Right.
I mean,
there wasn't planning on, they had nothing planned, but I'm just saying, jumping to an M2 MacBook Pro, they announced that just through a press release and not through an event.
Right.
It wouldn't surprise me, except for the 15-inch MacBook Air. I think that they're going to do an event for. They're going to do in the keynote.
Well, then I think you would do both, but, whichever.
Yeah.
It was just a crazy idea. Honestly, it was an idea that I had last week that I thought we might wake up Friday to a press release for new Macs. So we can go ahead and talk about that all through the weekend. And then your 2 articles would have been either about the new Macs or, wow, they must have something huge planned if they don't even have time for the Macs when we get there.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a 3-hour keynote. I don't know. We get to sit in our homes and watch it, so it's fine. Talk to me about the software expectations.
All right. So we've got iOS and iPadOS 17, macOS 14, watchOS 10, all the other OSs. The biggest one, the biggest improvements we're looking for will be in iOS 17 and a little bit in iPadOS 17. It looks like Apple is getting ready to Sherlock day one. It's going to put in its own built-in journaling app into iPadOS. And it will also tie into the Find My app for location-based diary entries. There's going to be some new features in the health app that this could tie into as well, including mood and emotion tracking features. More changes to health. We're hoping that Apple is going to add in features for managing vision conditions. Think being able to store that prescription for your eyeglasses and your contact lenses right there in the health app. Looks like there could be some upgrades to Wallet. I think the biggest one that I'm hearing about is being able to track the balance of more credit cards in the Wallet app. Right now, you can see the balance of your Apple card, but you can't see the balance of any other credit card you might have, and it looks like that could be changing. And then the always-on display could get a lot nicer on the iPhone 14 Pro with a new smart display mode. It would, in landscape mode, in a horizontal mode, give you a better view of your upcoming calendar appointments, weather forecasts, notifications, and be a little more customizable than the lock screen is already. And last on that would be AirPlay and SharePlay, including better support for hotel smart TVs for when you're traveling.
I know you've got some stuff on the iPad and the other operating systems, but what you got here is pretty limited, and I kind of want to skip it because we do have a big thing that we want to get to. But before we get to that thing, I want to get to another thing.
Okay.
Okay. There was an outlier note from Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives last week saying he thinks that Apple is going to spend a tremendous amount of time on artificial intelligence, maybe like a roadmap for what Apple plans for artificial intelligence, or maybe just saying, here are features that are coming.
Yep.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
I didn't really see it happening, but Ming-Chi Kuo on Sunday put out a series of tweets that basically throws down the gauntlet and tells Apple, this is what your investors need you to do. Is to give more information, give more of an idea of where you're going with AI. Yeah. So maybe not.
See, here's the thing on that one. And then we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back and we'll do the headset thing. I thought that when Danielle Ives said that last week that it was ludicrous until Apple put out the job listing for somebody who could do both artificial intelligence stuff and mixed reality stuff. And they seem to be looking for like a fairly big guy in that. Now on one, or guy or gal, excuse me. Now on the one hand, if they're only doing that advertising, it doesn't sound like they're ready. Unless they're looking for somebody who's going to be the figurehead for it and they've actually got a bunch of stuff planned. I don't know. It feels like the reason I'm not sure that would happen today is I don't know what place there is for the developer in that yet.
Right.
It feels to me like if it's something that's going to be introduced as part of the operating system, but not something developers can really play with, then maybe we see that in the fall at the iPhone event, assuming that there is an iPhone event, which feels like a safe assumption, but not 100%. It feels like then they might talk about what the artificial intelligence on the iPhone can do for the user. And at that point, either developers, wise up and start finding ways to play with it, even without Apple telling them, here's how you can play with it, or it becomes a big thing for WWDC24, which we're not talking about because WWDC23 hasn't even started yet.
That hasn't even happened yet. I will say that there could be a tie-in for developers in their use of machine learning to build apps for the headset.
Well,
but it's tenuous. It's tenuous. It's not the type of AI that everybody's hearing about with ChatGPT and all the other stuff.
We'll strap into headset talk in a moment, but first a word from HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit and sponsor of today's show. Summer is a time for fun, not figuring out what's for dinner. HelloFresh makes it easy, delivering mouth-watering, chef-crafted recipes and fresh ingredients to your door so you can spend your summer doing whatever you want. HelloFresh is more convenient than grocery shopping and less expensive. If a recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of something, yeah, good luck at the grocery store. HelloFresh sends you just the ingredients you need in the right amount. You don't have to buy a bag of something when all you need is a cup. And compared to ordering in, please, HelloFresh is 25% less expensive than takeout. Now, one of my favorite HelloFresh recipes was the goat cheese chicken with figgy balsamic. None of that is anything I would have ever put together. The flavor combo was amazing, as were the carrots. I hate carrots, but their carrots were so good. The meals I've had with HelloFresh have been simply delightful. But try them for yourself. Go to hellofresh.com/MOK16 and use code MOK16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. That's hellofresh.com/MOK16 and use code MOK16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. Find out what makes HelloFresh America's #1 meal kit. Use code MOK16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping at hellofresh.com/MOK16. Jeff Butts is with us today. He is the managing editor of the Mac Observer, online at macobserver.com. All right, let's get to the thing. Let's get to the blessed headset. Let's talk about it.
Your holy grail.
I'm excited. I'm still excited. I mean, to the point that I found it difficult. One of the reasons I turned to you today is, first of all, I thought you might be more keyed in on some of the rumors that I haven't been keeping up with. But the other thing is, it both feels ridiculous to talk about the headset right now, and it feels impossible to not talk about the headset right now. Like everything from the price to what the use cases are going to be, like the whole Megillah. Like, I'm thinking, well, what are you thinking?
I don't think it's going to be $12,000.
Yeah. Okay. You think it's going to be $3,000?
I think it's going to be between $2,000 and $3,000.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty on board with that, just based on some of the display specs we've been hearing, the processor specs and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it will be very long after this one ships that they also ship a much less expensive model. I think this is just going to be the introductory. Let's get developers working on this stuff, have this available for people that do want to spend a ton of money. Mm-hmm. But as soon as we build up a catalog, then we'll come out with the less expensive model and a more expensive Pro model.
What do you think of the whole talk of there needs to be I'm sorry, I just heard what you said. A more expensive Pro model than what they're coming out with today, and then a less expensive model, and then something in between. You're thinking like an iPhone model or an iPad model?
No.
I'm sorry, a model of doing business. So you've got like the iPhone SE, you've got the iPhone, you've got the iPhone Pro, you've got the iPad, you've got the iPad Air, you've got the iPad Pro. Yeah,
we'd have the Reality headset. Let's call it a Reality Pro headset because this will be fun. We've got the Reality Pro headset that they announced today. Mm-hmm. The Reality Pro Lite, which will be a little bit less expensive and come sometime in the future. And about the same time as the Reality Pro Lite, we'll have a Reality Pro Pro.
Okay, that's interesting because that would actually follow the iPad model, because the iPad came out and it was the iPad and it was, do you want cellular, do you want larger, storage? But it was the iPad and that was it. And then we got
the iPad Mini.
Right. Then they started coming out with variations. All right.
Yep.
It's an interesting idea. I hate it.
I do too.
But I don't hate it. So talk to me about the killer app thing, because that's where I was going a moment ago. Because a lot of people say if Apple doesn't come out and say what the killer app is, then the thing is doomed. But of course, there are plenty of reasons to say it's doomed. My argument on that would be there's not going to be a killer app. There are going to be killer apps for different niches of people or different groups of people. So for some, it might be gaming. For some, it might be immersive sports. For some, it might be giant movies. Really, though, I think the whole thing is about getting developers really into it, because even though Apple will talk about the thousands and thousands of AR-enabled apps they have, one of them is the IKEA app, which is just find out what this Flurgenvergen will look like, in your living room, as opposed to an actual app that's written for AR. There's a difference between an AR app and an app that has, some AR capabilities. What's your thought on the idea that Apple needs a killer app? And then what kinds of things do you think Apple might actually introduce?
I think the headset can do so much that there's not going to be any one killer app. Because this is going to be a lot of things to a lot of people. Like you said, being able to really see what that new IKEA piece of furniture is going to look like in your living room, and walk around it.
Right.
You can already do that with your iPhone and the IKEA app. You can show it, in an AR view, but think being able to walk around it. Yeah.
Just don't try to sit in it.
That could end badly for someone like me.
Well, here's the thing that actually, so when I was doing a VR thing with the Star Trek show that I used to do, like 5 or 6 or 8 or 12, or I think it was 57 years ago now. But when I was doing that, we were actually in a VR space, and both my co-host and I did have the embarrassing thing happen, which nobody saw except that we told them, of trying to lean on a railing that was in a space that we were inhabiting. I mean, you just get used to it. You think it's there because you think it's there. Obviously, nobody's going to try to sit down in a piece of IKEA furniture they don't own, though. Let me ask you one other thing really quickly, because we're coming close to the end here. Gurman came out with a rumor over the weekend, or a supposition over the weekend, that there's going to be a demo area. What's funny is it never occurred to me that there wouldn't be once Apple started inviting members of the VR and AR press. I mean, when they invite people who write about this stuff, you better have something to show them besides, Apple Park and a sunburn. The question that I have is, do you think we are actually going to see the thing that Apple is going to introduce this fall at today's event? Or are we going to see sort of a demo unit, a sample idea, and then people are going to be able to try that out and talk about it, but the hardware that we will actually get to buy will be the second half of the iPhone event this fall?
So, honestly, I don't know. Simply because what Apple has allegedly shown to the board of directors and other experts in the field has been plagued with problems. So are they still scrambling to fix those problems? Do we know, is the form factor going to stay the same, or are they going to have to change it as they're trying to squish bugs? I think the fact that there's a demo area, and it looks, from the pictures I've seen, it looks like a fairly sizable tent. I think they're going to have at least several samples available for the press to try out.
Sure.
But will that be the same thing that ships in the fall or closer to the holidays? It's anybody's guess at this point.
One last question for you. What are you most excited about? As far as what we might see today, what are you most excited about?
I'm excited about the headset.
Because of course you are. Jeff Butts is the managing editor of the Mac Observer. Remind everybody, sir, where to find that and where to get in touch with you if they want to.
Sure. You can find my stuff at macobserver.com. You can email me at jeffb@macobserver.com. And I'm still kicking around on Twitter as @Clefmeister if you want to find me there.
Jeff Butts, thank you very much for taking time with us today.
Anytime. It was a pleasure.
And with that, the stage is set. I know you know, but this is the last time I will remind you that the WWDC Keynote is today, Monday, the 5th of June at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. You can catch it on YouTube. You can catch it on Apple's developer app. You can catch it at apple.com/events. And soon after, it'll be available as both an audio podcast and a video podcast. And yes, we will go over highlights right here tomorrow. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by Issue. Get 50% off an annual premium account with code macOSKen at issuu.com/podcast. This show is also sponsored by HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Go to hellofresh.com/MOK16 and use code MOK16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. info@macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Enjoy the keynote, everyone. Until next time, that will do this special edition of macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.